Down here, so that's all nice. You know, that's all funded through the sales sport and commercial fishing licenses, of which you guys contribute the most. And you know, because of that, we we really have to focus on whatever the department and the program wants us to focus on, which is white sea bass. So this used to be a restaurant, so it's a bit of a maze.
I remember.
You remember that?
I've eaten here.
It predates me. So, but anyway, down here we have flexibility to work on, again, what we're doing is aquaculture, farming in the ocean. We have flexibility to do other things besides sea bass, and sometimes we will do a sea bass as well. There we go. Should be able to see them in there pretty readily. I think we got about 25 fish or so, and there's some. There's some big ones in there.
Yeah, there's some big ones in there.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the nameplate.
What are these here?
So these are yellowtails.
Yellowtail.
These are ones that we cultured. So these are ones that we produced, and the yellowtail work that we're doing is more geared towards feeding people directly. This isn't so much about being able to release them, but more traditional farming. And our thought on the farming piece is that if you can farm some of these species that people like, there's a lot of
there's up to 60 pounders in here.
Why aren't we doing this? But anyway,
6-0.
We're trying to push ahead on it, and the reality is, the sea bass program has been kind of like an incredible foundation to be able to figure out how to rear these fish, because a lot of it's transferable. If you learn on white sea bass, you can do it with
There's a white sea bass thing been working and people catching one.
Well, it's Tuesday. We're at Hubbs SeaWorld up here in Carlsbad. As you can tell, stunning day out. Those waves over there. Anyway, we've got a nice little tour coming up here with Mark, one of the lead scientists. So, we have a few minutes. Looking forward to this. Stay tuned. I guess these are some of their pins that they have out there. Beautiful backdrop though, isn't it?
These are our tagging machines here, so I'll show you where we tag the fish, but each fish gets a small piece of stainless steel wire put into the cheek muscle of the fish, and it has a code that's etched into it. So when we release a batch of fish, say from Newport Bay, we'll tag those fish as a group, put them in the pen, and then when they get released, we can go back. If we catch them, earlier this year, we caught a fish that was over 20 years old. So we can read the tag and go right back to our database and say.
How big was that fish?
20.
Remember?
Yeah, I was trying to think. The age was it's like 54 pounds.
I was going to say. That's the one you want, Tom.
So ladies, can you just briefly explain what's going on here?
Sure. So we take a sample of fish from each tank, and then we individually assess each of those fish for any quality differences, basically.
Okay.
So
That's it.
most of the time there's a normal range of variability, and then other times when you have really high survival, like Mark Drawbridge was mentioning, you can occasionally see malformations. And so ideally we want to reduce the amount of malformations so that we have a high quality product. We don't want to introduce a hatchery phenotype out into the ocean.
Right on.
RL.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
It looks interesting. Carry on. That's all I got to say.
So the way this thing works here is we have 5 of these tanks. Historically, we've run 4 of them with one as kind of a backup.
Look at 'em.
We're in the process now of doing some renovations on each tank sequentially as we have the funding. They've been operating for 20 years. But it's a pretty cool system, the way these things run. So if we're running 4 of these, we would have 4 different seasons represented. So we control the water temperature and the photo period. So right now it's winter time, but we have at least one group that thinks it's springtime, summertime, spawning season.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. So all these fish were collected from the wild. We put a chip in them. We pit tag them, so we know who's who. And before they go in here, we determine males and females. So the idea is to put them in here in a set ratio. And then we feed them good fish and squid, supplemented with vitamins, keep the water quality good and all that. And then they'll spawn for us when the conditions are right. And so the spawning, the female releases the eggs in the water column and the males fertilize the eggs in the water column. And then the good eggs float. And so the water, as it's leaving the tank, comes into this mesh bag here. We call it an egg trap. And the eggs are retained and the water then is pumped back in. So we'll just check in the morning, usually they spawn in the evening time. And we'll just check in the morning and see if they spawn. And then if they're ready to go collect it up, we put it in a graduated cylinder, measure the volume, and we convert that to the number.
What are we observing here?
We are observing some juvenile white sea bass.
Oh, juvenile there.
Juvenile white sea bass.
Yeah, so on each tank you have a display board here that gives you the vital statistics for the group of fish. So this, there's 1,000 fish in here. There, let's see, what's today? As of a couple days ago, they're 135 days. DPH is days post-hatch. So after they hatch from an egg, they're an egg for 2 days. Maybe more than you want to know, but it's all good fun. Gives you the spawn information. So B4, it came from tank B4. They're getting 5 millimeter feed by hand 4 to 6 times per day. So that's what Savannah's doing here. You kind of got to feed, you can't just dump the food in, it ends up on the bottom. So she's making sure that it gets eaten, which is important for the cleanliness of the tank and also for the health of the fish. So are these tagged, Savannah?
Yes, I believe these.
Yeah. I think these fish are all tagged, so I'm not sure. We have a couple facilities, Newport Bay and Channel Islands Harbor I think these fish are slated for either one of those facilities.
We have this is the 5 milliliter, and then we have smaller ones of these ones like 3 milliliter.
Yeah, these are actually maybe even a little bit larger, but like I said before, they're so let me walk you through this. So we'll bring, from in there, we'll bring a batch of fish and we'll put it in this tank right here. Okay. So we work in reasonable numbers of fish, right? And we'll set it up. Whenever we move fish, the preferred method of moving fish is in water. And so we like to transport them in a pipe. You know, flow them with gravity from one place to another. If we need to net them, then put them in a bucket, and then we'll do that. But we try and avoid netting. Sometimes you can't, you can't. But anyway, so we'll sluice the fish in here from one of those tanks in a pipe, in a reasonable number, and then we have somebody working this area here, and they'll move the fish within that into this area here, and we have an anesthetic in the water here, so the fish get knocked out. And so it's a process. I mean, it's an approved anesthetic. People use it for fish everywhere. It's very straightforward. We've used it for years. The fish go out. You can do what you need to do, and then they wake up and they don't know what. The floor gets a little slippery here, so just be careful.
Oh, okay. Look at that.
Bait ball.
So,
What are they?
these are all sea bass. Really everything that we got in here is sea bass. Occasionally we'll do research on some other species, but otherwise it's our mission is sea bass. So just to give you a kind of an orientation, in terms of walking, we went in a circle here, but as far as life stages, we went a little out of order. So the eggs, we can do a few things with the eggs. And again, we don't have any set up, otherwise I would have shown them to you. But there's a little building over there where we can set eggs up. In there, it's just protected within the main hatchery building. And they'll stay in there for 3 weeks or so. And then they come in here. So these guys are probably, I don't know, 40 days old or so. The ones you saw over there are 135. So this is, we call this our J1 system, juvenile 1. So they'll stay in here till they're about 60 days old, and then they go to that back system. So it's just a way to keep, we'd like to keep life stages together as much as possible and not mix big fish and small fish, and that's how we do it. Here right now, particularly, but just to show you what it looks like, it's a lot of smaller tanks. And so this unit here has 36 tanks, and there's one behind it in that curtain area that has 40 tanks. And so, for example, we just got finished with a study with larval fish. It's pretty, I don't know, it's hard to describe a little bit, but where we're just trying to improve, better understand the rearing conditions. So it was geared kind of at the color of the tank walls and how the larvae respond to that. So, again, there's all these nuances, like you can look at light into all kinds of factors that, to try and optimize the culture environment, especially for the larval fish. So these tanks are so small, they're obviously geared more towards smaller fish, and we're always trying to improve. And a lot of, when you work with larval fish, you have to appreciate that there's not much known about them, because, all that happens out there. A lot of them, they're few and far between, a lot of them getting all that. So that's what we do in here. We're gearing up to do a nutrition trial with older juvenile fish. So to give you an idea of the other kinds of things that we work on here, it's going to be older fish. And what we're getting paid to look at is to develop sustainable feeds. And by sustainable feeds, I mean one of the concerns and considerations is, as aquaculture continues to grow, which it is globally, to feed people. Because capture fisheries are flat. You're not going to get more fish out of the ocean by traditional fishing. It's just, we're pulling all the fish. So as the human population continues to grow, and those people want to eat seafood, and they need to be eating seafood because it's good for you, it's going to come from farming.
So we're here with Mark. We just concluded at least 2-hour tour here of Hubbs Research Institute up here in Carlsbad. But I just want to, number one, thank Mark very much for the very in-depth tour. And I also want to ask him, for the lay fisherman or for the lay person of society or whatever, what can they do to help Hubbs Research Institute out?
That's a great question. Thank you. Well, there's a number of different things that can be done. As you've seen through the tour here, we rely heavily on volunteers, primarily at the grow-out facilities up to this date, but we're always looking for help here. So that's one thing. Working through CCA as part of that process. That's the go-to organization that we're working with, whether it's here in the hatchery, at the grow-out facilities. We're going to be out collecting broodstock, those sorts of things. Come on by and give us a visit if you haven't been here, if you're not familiar with the program and you're interested in what we're doing here. Coming and seeing it's a great way to really get a handle on that and see for yourself. And then the other thing that we're always out there looking for is funding.
As a nonprofit organization, we rely heavily on charitable contributions. So if you or you know somebody that's in a position to do that, there's so much more that we could be doing and we'd like to be doing to further this effort, but it takes funds. So
Thank
I
you.
think those are a few things that come to mind.